Okay, we will open where am I? Tuesday, September 7th, regular city council meeting. And an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any concerns about the minutes?
Okay. Thank you. On the August 3rd minutes, it's page 6 of 10, top paragraph. It's a continuation from page 5 with Jan Warman. And on the second line, it is ocean from, it should be ocean front, OM zone. And then if you drop down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line, it's instead of coordinator buffer, it's corridor protection buffer. And then continuing on that same line, we have now do not permit driveways. So we now do not permit driveways. Okay, then you drop down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line. And again, it's that same correction of corridor protection buffer. And that's it.
I got this.
Thank you.
Okay, then the motion to the consent.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of August 3rd and August 10th with the noted changes by Councilor Risley.
Seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes, okay, thank you. We will now move into our public comment phase, and I have one name listed for Jan. So you want to hook up Jan and see what she wants to say?
Hello.
Hello, Jan.
Hi. So I am Jan Siebert Warmond, and I'm speaking to you tonight for the Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees. And the address is P.O. Box 778, Cannon Beach 97110. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, as you know, the Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees is dedicated to the growth, stewardship, and preservation of the trees of our community as a living legacy for present and future generations. We celebrate the fact that trees make our town a beautiful, healthy place to live and to visit. Trees have the ability to draw carbon out of the atmosphere and thus help mitigate the negative effects of climate change. Trees are valuable in so many varied ways, and they deserve our respect and protection. Many in our community have noticed an exponential loss of our Cannon Beach trees in the past year or two. In our estimation, this has been due to a combination of factors. Residents are upset that what many thought were strict rules of tree protection have either not been enforced or need to be strengthened even further to achieve the benefit which trees can bring to our community as a whole. Of course, there may be times when a particular tree may really need to be cut down, but it is our hope that this will more and more become the exception rather than the rule, as we work together to develop an ever greater appreciation for our tree population with clear protections to nurture and retain them, and in the hopefully rare instances where removal is truly necessary, to plant replacement trees as near to their original location as possible. It has recently been brought to our attention that in some communities, before any tree is allowed to be cut down, there is a tree committee review. If approved for removal, a dollar amount is assigned to that tree, and it is not an insignificant amount. A list of replacement trees is provided, as we also do here already in Cannon Beach, and then the city oversees the replanting and requires the property owner to make certain that the tree is well looked after until it gets established. In this approach, trees are treated more like valuable real estate rather than something of little worth. We would like to look into this option for our community going forward. One other item for all of us in Cannon Beach to consider is limiting somewhat the size of new homes being built. The increase in the floor area ratio over the past 30 years has contributed significantly to the loss of many of our trees. We ask that some serious consideration be given to this concern as you work with the question of new home sizes and accessory dwelling units during your code audit process. Thanks again to all of you for your support of the Cannon Beach Heritage Tree Program, which is now being developed with the help of the Cannon Beach Parks and Community Services Committee and city staff. We appreciate all you do to aid our town to follow our Tree City USA mission to inspire people to plant, nurture, and celebrate trees. We close this letter with our Cannon Beach tree protection goal from our own Cannon Beach Municipal Code, which is, quote, to establish protective regulations for trees within the city in order to better control problems of soil erosion, landslide, air pollution, noise, wind, and destruction of scenic values and wildlife habitat, and to protect trees as a natural resource which establishes the wooded character of the city, end quote. Please make sure our city staff and our city arborist can have the financial resources they need to better protect our community trees. We pledge our volunteer hours to assist whenever possible in this important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Jan.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just comment on something that Jan said. She had a good observation saying the past 2 years, it seems that there's a lot more going on. And we went back and looked at that, and going back to, I think it was 2015, and the subsequent 5 years, we were issuing 115 building permits or less a year. Then last year, it went from 115 to over 230. And then, I'm sorry, 2 years ago, it went up to 230 from 115 range. And then last year, it was, I think, 350. So we went 115 for a long time, then all of a sudden we did a jump up to 230, and then we jumped up again, tripling what it was prior. So there have been a lot more homes, things like that that are being constructed. I think that that statistic is relevant to tomorrow night's meeting also.
Talk about this a little bit more at the good of the order. So
Mhm.
we have another hand up, Rusty. So let's ask Jesse Just if they wish to speak.
She's muted.
Hello there, members of the council. Can you hear me?
Hello, Jesse. Thank you.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Members of the council, my name is Jessie Just. I'm here to introduce to you the newly formed organization, the Heart of Cardam. In the 2 years since Tillamook County took over the operation of the Manzanita transfer station, Cardam, the organization that was operating that transfer station, went on to sort of reinvent itself. In this past June, all members of the Cardam Recycling Board stepped down and a new enthusiastic team of leaders stepped up, including me serving as the board chair. The Heart of Cardam is supporting community building, sustainable living, and artistic expression through creative reuse. So we are the same organization with nearly the same mission, just a little bit of a name change, and we have moved our operations into Wheeler. So we are located right downtown Wheeler, and we are hosting repair cafes and creative reuse here in our little workshop area. You can visit what we call the Office of Reimagination at 395 Nehalem Boulevard in Wheeler. We're open extended weekends, so that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, noon to 6. And we're envisioning a much larger place, a permanent home where we have some space to spread out, maybe a piece of property that would function much like our refinery did before, a sort of picker's paradise and place for artistic creations. I want members of the council, I want to personally invite you to our Saturday event on September 11th. It's from 3 to 5 p.m. It is a repair cafe where you can bring a broken item and our fix-it experts will help you to diagnose the problem, see what's going on. And we're also teaming up with Solve Oregon to clean the beach at the Nehalem Bay State Park. So these times are really challenging us to reimagine the way that our rural communities here on the coast can collect and use our resources. The Heart of Cardam is really asking our community to reimagine our relationship to waste items together. So thank you so much. I'd love to see you here at our Office of Reimagination, and I'd love to answer any questions that you might have this evening.
Do we have any questions?
I just wanted to say I'm very excited to hear that you're doing this. We really missed that opportunity for a while, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. We'd be happy to see you in the office. You can contact me, Jesse, at heartofcardam.org, or come on in and say hi. Thank you, members of the council.
Thank you. I just want to know how.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on then. No more hands. So our first item, ordinance. Penalty level. So Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. What you have before you is ordinance 2106. After last year, when the ordinance changed for the fireworks, we discussed last month during the work session changing, making some corrections, and one of them was an additional reducing the handheld sparkling devices to a level 1 violation, which would make it a $100 fine. And then also there's an additional revision that's recommended. The word processing or possessing was removed from section 9.16010 by leaving it in anyone possessing or even legal fireworks are at risk of being in violation of the ordinance. So there are some stores that still sell the novelty items and or families that come through town with fireworks that are legal in the state of Oregon. And this just says that they can't be cited for possessing them alone. And the Exhibit A contains Ordinance 2106, which makes these adjustments.
Questions?
But that was a good, our adjustment, the possession. I think we'd overlooked that previously.
It happens, there's a lot of wording in that ordinance, and we went back and forth with some other things, but I think we're good with these revisions where it will be useful. And just to let you guys know, we did have those ones come to court last week, I believe. And the judge, knowing what was going on, had held imposition of sentencing for 1 year and gave them a $100 fine. They were very thankful and respectful and said that they wouldn't even bring fireworks to Cannon Beach anymore. But they paid the $100 fine and said that they wouldn't violate it again. And that's really what our goal is the education. So we were happy with that.
Oh, good.
Good.
Okay. Next, we have possibly a double motion.
Move to approve the first reading of ordinance 21-06.
Second?
Seconded, ordinance 2106, an ordinance amending the municipal code by amending chapter 9.16 fireworks prohibited. Any discussion? Roll call?
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. It was unanimous. And approve the second reading.
In that case, I move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 21-06.
Second?
Ordinance 2106, an ordinance amending the municipal code by amending chapter 9.16 fireworks prohibited. Any discussion? Ooh, Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Ordinance number 2106 has been adopted. It will become effective 30 days. Okay. That's done. Next item. Resolution. Oh, security cameras. Jason. Jason.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Council. Before you is the consideration of resolution 2127 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases of the budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations. This is about something that we have discussed the last several months, and actually again on August 10th at the work session regarding the cameras. And part of those we had discussed prior to the meeting were for other departments that would be at the cash sites and city buildings, protecting our other buildings, as well as replacing the ones at the police department. We currently have 7. Some are required by law on the jail cells and in our interview room, which is where we sometimes store juveniles until their parents can come. But these would replace those cameras that we already have in place so that they would work with the new system that we have and we could all be connected as well. But attachment B lists the location of each of the cameras, where they would go. And then attachment A is the actual resolution and breaks down the cost split between the departments using them. There's 33 total cameras that will be installed in different areas. And these cameras include a 10-year camera license. The license covers all maintenance of the cameras, including replacement of failed, broken devices, and a 30-day storage of all footage to the cloud. So if something were to pop up and we had an incident, we could still jump on there and hold it indefinitely. But it just keeps them for 30 days in case something comes up. 28 days from now, we can still review for 30 days. Camera allows Public Works, the Police Department, and Emergency Management to monitor sites and assets remotely, including motion notifications after hours. So one of the things I was just talking with Corporal Bowman about was just the addition of the signs at the cache sites that say monitored by cameras have kept people from going down there and camping right in front of them. He did say that it's interesting now that they park up on the street right outside them because they want to be down on the cameras that are down there. But he says it alleviates them having to watch people go to the bathroom on camera. But the damage that had been done and graffiti also within, since we talked on August 10th, we've had 2 crimes in town that would have been helpful to have had the cameras in place. One of them being a car break-in downtown that was really unfortunate. They ended up using the victim's credit cards all over in Oregon. Luckily, we were able to get a stop on it, but just being able to obtain what they looked like in a camera view and where they had gone afterwards. But another one was a few days later when we had a subject breaking into houses that had stolen a gun. And just when you have 1 or 2 officers on, it's hard to limit where you're looking, and having those cameras to narrow down where we're searching is very good.
A question, you say allow us to monitor, but I can't imagine the way of somebody monitoring all the time. It's more of recording and having that as a record. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but like we had talked about before, if there's another one too, a missing child or somebody downtown in the downtown area, we could have our admin watching the cameras to see if they're seeing them. And even during the summer, have a parking information aide come in and monitor the camera to watch for what we're looking for as well.
So you have a remote monitors in the station or wherever?
Yeah, it's all in the internet, so we can either look on our phones or our iPads that are in the cars as well. So we're not having to come back to the office as well.
And that's a live?
Yeah.
monitor? Okay.
Or you can go back on the recording.
Yeah.
In the minutes, you had said there were going to be 4 cameras. And so 33 seems like an awful lot. Is it necessary to have that many?
The 4 are for the intersections that we talked about on the 10th. The 33 are the
I saw what
Yeah,
addendum B is, but it seems
it's
like
more of a collaboration
overkill.
between us and the Public Works and Emergency Management to protect the city's assets. They would be focused on those buildings that are city assets, whether it's the 3 Public Works buildings that are separate from here, as well as the emergency cache sites.
The one that surprised me was 5 cameras for Public Works Yard.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's not that big, so I'm just trying to figure out where would those 5 cameras be?
Some of it has to do with the layout of how things are out there. We're trying to get different angles, like the gates and the buildings themselves.
The ones with the Public Works yards are tough because we've had break-ins, whether it's people climbing the fences and breaking into the trucks and the cars, but also the access to the building. There's 3 different access points to the building to get in there.
All of these will be posted as there is cameras
Certainly.
on site. I'm just curious. I was thinking like the.
Because that's just another great added deterrent.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Any other questions or motion?
Move to adopt. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll wait for questions.
Go ahead, please.
I move to adopt resolution 2127 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2021 through 2022 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations.
I'll second it.
Now, any other comments? Oh, Jennifer?
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Mayor Stadell.
Yes. Thank you. Next item,
Thank you very much.
budget resolution again for cyber security. Who's this?
Lori?
Lori. Cyber.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. So tonight we're talking about cyber insurance coverage. So our insurance agent informed us about mid-June that CIS, who we had previously had our cyber insurance coverage with, had changed their plan terms. We used to have $250,000 of coverage with a $5,000 deductible. Alicia from Assured Partners, our agent, told us that we're raising the deductible to $250,000. And so, of course, we were alarmed by that, and we thought that that was really not adequate coverage for the city, especially in these times where I know you're all reading the newspapers. Ransomware attacks are prevalent. We had an incident in Tillamook, so that's pretty close to home. I know it frightens me to think that someone could hack into our system and take our financial data. I couldn't operate my department. I mean, it would be debilitating to do that. And I know every department of the city depends on our technology and trying to keep it safe and secure. And Rusty's great with that. So we got with Bruce and told him what happened. And so we thought, okay, well, Alicia's got some ideas. Rusty and I can work with her and bring back to Bruce what we think would work better for us, even though we had to spend a little more money. So whenever you get new cyber coverage, you have to fill out an application. They ask you a lot of questions about how your systems operate. Multi-factor authentication. Rusty could speak much better to this than I can, but they're kind of strict about who they insure. So we did find someone that Alicia recommended. It's Beasley, and we would have with them a higher cost, $14,160 a year, but that does give us $1 million coverage and with a $5,000 deductible. So when we brought that to Bruce, Bruce said, yeah, we think that's worth it to have that coverage. And so our application was accepted through Beasley. They ask a lot of hard questions about your systems. And so we're here tonight to ask for a budget adjustment so that we can get that coverage in place tomorrow, if you're amenable to that. And I don't know, Rusty and I are here if you have any questions.
I have a question about what kind of support we will get and or should get from Beasley in looking over our system, making recommendations on how to harden it, make it more secure rather than just be an insurance agent. What are they doing to help us revise or improve our system?
They're not actually giving us a lot of recommendations in those regards. They actually point us towards the feds because the feds have a lot of actual free resources that we can use where they can actually conduct some security scans on your systems and you can work with them and then they can figure out where your holes are and you can figure out how to patch that. They also recommend some education process, just awareness, general awareness training. So we're going to start doing that kind of stuff. Other than that, they don't really interact with us that much in regards to what we can do better. We actually get a lot more out of our insurance broker than the insurance company themselves. She's the one that pointed us in a couple of these directions. So
Have you taken advantage of the federal programs that are available?
Yes, I actually signed us up for a couple different ones where they're doing some, they kind of do an external probing type situation. So they try to find holes into your network from the outside. So we're actually doing some testing now on that. And then I'm going to work on getting some training for our staff as well here shortly.
Excellent. Thank you.
You've also changed our procedures for accessing on our phones.
Yep.
Computers away from here and even in the city. You like having Rusty?
Is Rusty in shirt?
Yeah, that's what we should do.
Okay. We're all good. We could use a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 21-28 for the purpose of adopting a supplemental budget by making appropriations for municipal purposes of the city of Cannon Beach for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
I have a different date on mine. It says commencing July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021.
Oh, that's an error.
Okay, so Mike's is correct.
Mike said it right.
Okay,
That's 21, 22.
The next one down.
Oh, okay, I see that. So yeah, we can just change that.
And the motion was correct.
Yes, the motion's correct.
it's the suggestion. It's incorrect.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry about
I
that.
see that now.
Any other comments? Jennifer?
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidham.
Yes. Passed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Next item,
Don't go too far.
resolution for approving increases in the budget for the receptionist court position.
I guess, if there's any technical questions on the amounts, but we had talked about this at a workshop, and that is to recreate the receptionist court clerk position to allow some of the more routine functions that are occurring in finance to be able to have those taken by that position so that the rest of our positions can take on some of the additional tasks they've had recently and some that we anticipate coming.
Questions?
Just that, Bruce, are we on track as the discussion you and I had about we'll be looking for the judge sometime here in the future?
Yes, and the workshop next Tuesday, you folks will be looking at the advertisement,
Okay, great.
see if there's anything, that you want to see or change. And then I'll also be asking you what process you want to use. Do you want to have the candidates come here so you can interview them? The last time we did it, I think it was the city manager, who else?
The attorney and one counselor.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much of a public interview process. But we'll be asking you how you want to proceed. That should start immediately after next Tuesday. We'll be doing the advertising, unless you have any questions.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Does this budget amount include the benefits?
Yep.
So
Yes.
it'll cover all that cost.
Yes.
And it's full-time,
Yes.
40 hours. Okay.
Okay, then I guess we need a motion.
We'll move to adopt resolution 2129 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations.
Second.
Any comments? No? Jennifer?
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes. Okay, that's all the resolutions.
Thank you
And
so
now,
much.
I do have a question. I know it's already passed, but in looking at the budget adjustment, it's all coming out of the executive budget.
Mhm.
And yet it's handled by the finance department. The work itself is done by Lori's department.
Mhm.
But it's new person, at least for now, it's coming out of the. executive.
We do for the rest of this year, but put it.
Oh, put it in there.
Executive.
Okay.
And next year, when we get to we go into budget, it'll all be distributed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
we have a
Bruce.
consideration for proclamation as National Hispanic Heritage Month, Cannon Beach. We do this one every year. I don't think we have, do we have a representative?
No, I sent a couple messages and I didn't hear back.
Okay, well,
Maybe we could reach out to the Hispanic Council to help us in the future to further the relationships in the community. I know this year would be a tough one to do that, but I can see that we would really benefit by that.
Will the Hispanic community even be aware that this is the position of the city? Or are we just sitting here in a vacuum?
There are a couple people I can think of right offhand. Jeannie McLaughlin could reach out. There also is a gal named Lynette. I'll think of her last name here in a second, but
Billy Gomez,
pardon me?
isn't it Billy Gomez?
Yes, yes. I think she's been on the board there. So do you want me to reach out to her?
one of the reasons we do proclamations is for those organizations benefit for the most part, because they ask for the proclamation. Generally, they'll ask for a proclamation so that they then have that as a ammunition, you might say, for their advance of their goals.
Is that how that came to us?
Usually, and this is one of the ones that's annual. Just always kind of kept up with it.
We've had representatives.
We've always had representatives before, and that's just a courtesy that they offer generally. So, my sense of the best thing we could do is to pass this as a proclamation from the city.
I think, and I agree. I think in addition, though, taking the printed proclamation, delivering it. I know there's a Hispanic organization in town, so they receive that either by mail, I think a formal document, a written document through the mail, just another way, rather than, I don't know what reaching out means, drag them in here, but I think an awareness that we as a city council are supporting of this community. Only way I can think right now is to make sure that this proclamation is delivered to them. So just a
It
suggestion.
looks like Jeannie, I have horrible vision, but it looks like Jeannie McLaughlin's on there.
Oh, perfect.
She will relay it as well.
Yeah, so we can, another thing is, I don't know if we post these anywhere. Sometimes we post things at the post office. Proclamations I've never seen posted, but that's kind of the idea. Anyhow,
Also, look beyond just the city to organizations that promote Hispanic, the Hispanic community. So for example, what was the one that you mentioned? Spanish,
Hispanic.
The
Hispanic
Hispanic.
Council, that kind of thing. We'll get that. And there might be others that they can let us know so that they know the action that you've taken.
I like the idea, if we can put it in the post office, the rest of the public is aware of the importance of it.
Sure.
Yeah, we can put it in the post office. If there's a time limit on how much we keep, because it depends on what other ordinances and things that we have coming up. But we can do that for a period of time.
Okay. This is considered National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Mhm.
So month is.
Yeah.
Well, more.
We'll do it during September.
So. Do we have a motion?
Move to adopt proclamation 2109 declaring September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month in Cannon Beach.
Seconded.
Okay. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley.
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Siddle.
Yes. I think I'll just forgo reading it and move on. Next, I see contract for modification providing vehicle to vehicle allowance. Bruce? Or Ashley?
Good evening, City Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So a pretty simple contract amendment before you tonight. I believe the council has discussed that under Bruce's employment contract from 2017, the city provided Bruce a vehicle for him to use. But after a discussion, the council came to the opinion that it was a better idea to provide a $500 per month vehicle allowance in lieu of a take-home car. Because of this decision, we're going to modify Bruce's contract to take out the city's obligation to provide him a vehicle and replace it with the $500 vehicle allowance. Because of the difficulty in procuring cars these days, Bruce has asked that this provision or this amendment not take effect until 30 days after he has been able to find a suitable vehicle. So if there's no other questions, staff recommendation is to approve the request for modification of the existing contract with the city.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so who's paying for the insurance on the car? You would be? Okay, I know just as a Realtor that I am required to have $1 million blanket policy to cover myself as I'm working. So I'm just curious, do we have that sort of situation here? Because it would put the city in jeopardy, correct?
So if that question's for me, we can certainly discuss it. I believe the idea is that the city does not have obligations to Bruce for a vehicle, and the $500 would cover the expense of the vehicle, insurance, gas, and so forth. But I want to make sure that that's Bruce's understanding as well.
It is. My understanding also.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So for clarification, you're asking to approve the contract, but not make it effective until further notification?
So the amendment would be effective on passage, but the actual obligation to replace the vehicle with the $500 a month would be 30 days after Bruce acquires a vehicle.
Okay.
We need a motion to approve this or not.
So the motion would be, I move to approve the city manager's request for a modification to the existing contract with the city.
Move to approve the city manager's request for a modification to the existing contract with the city.
Seconded.
Any last discussion?
Good luck getting a car right now.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. They're promising me cars that are going to be built in October, they think. You know, I mean, but when I drive into my truck, they get really, you start to salivate, say, you know how much that truck is worth?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want the truck.
Well, even though I've made this motion, if you find yourself in a position where you're not able to get a car of your choice and feel, you know, is there a problem with just keeping it the way it is right now?
No, that's the way that it's written.
Okay.
Stay this way until 30 days after I get a vehicle.
Because I don't personally no hurry to
No,
see this change.
exactly.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you.
This item. The Oregon City's voting delegate for the membership meeting.
It's not gonna happen.
I suppose I'll try and attend, but
I think that they're going to have a shorter virtual meeting, but we would still need to have a voting delegate if there are any subjects that come up.
I've done it before, so.
That's great.
I didn't hear of any problems with that.
No, we were fine with your votes.
Okay.
Organization's still there, so.
Well, there was that incident, but never mind.
There was that 1 year when everybody was colluding. That pissed me off, but okay, never mind. That was the end of our meeting, so. For the status report?
I had one thing and it had to do with the DRB decision on Jeff Nicholson and the tree that was removed. I have a question about how this has been handled. I heard that Arbor Care is made a determination about that particular tree 2 years ago and said it was sound. So I am questioning that it's damaged and susceptible tree. I also heard that it had to do with a water line, but that's not what's mentioned here. So I just think that this should have risen to a higher level where there would have been more than just a chair making a decision. And I'm a little disappointed that Mike didn't realize that because he does care about trees.
The design review board,
It was just approved as a minor modification.
The way that city has handled modifications is that we go to the chair and the chair makes the call. And then I think there's a reporting back to the rest of the committee. That's something that we might be talking about with the code audit process, to your point.
Yeah, because I think our arborist should have looked at it. When I saw how it stuck out like it did when it was cut, it was just terrible and very unsightly. I just think that was a very bad thing for people to see all weekend long here in Cannon Beach.
And Robin, I'll check to see if our arborist was involved or not. I don't know that offhand.
Okay, that'd be nice. Thank you. I have a few others. Okay, I know Jeff isn't here, so I guess if Bruce can answer these, that would be nice. The department process 2 development permits, do you know which ones those were?
Would you read it again?
It is the third line after other planning and building matters.
It's the second bullet.
Second bullet, yes.
Yeah, I see that. I will check. I think it had to do with the permits for our site that we take the spoils. But I'll get it, I'll do an email to you all tomorrow.
Okay, and then,
I'm sorry, those are permits we're working with DEQ.
oh, okay, because later on it suggests that.
Mhm.
So I would.
Yeah, I see that.
Mention it twice. Because that was another question I had.
I had a question about that too.
Yeah.
What is that? Exactly what's going on?
We, because when we do a road project or something, we need a place for a clean fill. And so I think there was a place in Astoria, I think it shut down for a little while, whatever. But for us to be able to go ahead and expedite our projects, we worked with Greenwood to actually, we go through Greenwood, we go through somebody else's property on this road that kind of winds up. And then we end up on the Southwind site. It's away from any place that we might build. And that's where we take the clean fill when we go up there. There's been a discussion, one person is not happy that we use those roads and has made the process a little bit more difficult for us to get that permit renewed.
What happens then after you have finished the project and you've deposited the fill? Does it stay there? Does it go somewhere else?
No, it'll stay there, but it's dirt.
Can it be used in other areas?
Yes.
Clean.
The other one was received a draft memorandum of understanding for review regarding the scope of work for the application for natural hazard mitigation towards proposed solutions for bank stability. I was kind of encouraged to hear that you were at that point. Can you tell us more?
I'm sorry, I don't have as much information as what Jeff does, but we'll get you a memo on it.
Okay, well, it's nice to have it at that point.
Mhm.
Project, okay, that was the spoils one. Okay, and then director met with Laurel Street property owners and contractor regarding remedial dune grading, development permitting.
Mhm.
What is that about?
Sam, which street goes along your side? Is that Third? First?
I'm on First.
Okay,
So Laurel's the upper north-south street.
right. So it's the one that's out by, you take Sam's all the way out, and there's several houses there that have done remedial grading in the past. And they were looking, because I think that they've had more erosion than what they've been used to, but they just asked us to come out and talk to them.
Beach ramp there, right off of First,
Uh-huh.
was problematic. And then they came and fixed it. And then something was weird about the way it was fixed. They cut back further than normal. So I think that's what.
Last winter storms really got way back in there.
Yeah, and the winds were changed things. So it was just.
Getting it back to
I'm
normal.
not quite sure. And I think is
Brian McEwen?
John Thayer involved in that.
Yeah, he is.
It's been
Ah,
very
okay.
proper.
I know exactly where that is. Okay, and then he also spoke to property owners about possible annexation and development into the UGB. Where is that, off of the old 101?
Yeah, I think it's on the east side. I think that, you see, at the upcoming workshop, we're gonna have a discussion because we think we're gonna get more approaches about annexation. And so we want to have a discussion about, what does it mean? What is your role? What is the role? What are you required to do? What can you have discretion on? That sort of thing. So we have a common vocabulary before we start getting them. That was prompted by people that have come in and started to have some discussions, but there's been no follow-up to it. So we thought, let's have that discussion so we all know what we're talking about.
Do you know what kind of development you're talking about?
And so working on the MOU, this is on page 5 of 6, with neighbors to the east. And it says Greenland Forestry, but that's
Greenwood.
correct. And the MOU draft for Greenland Forestry to begin May 2021 draft only. And for recovery evacuation companies to stage equipment in Cannon Beach. So can you explain more about that one?
Yes, there's one of the things that I would like to see put in place is contracts with various site work people, whatever that we have around here. Get them under contract in advance with a contract that is acceptable to FEMA. Then we can just call them up and say, please come help us. And all the rates and everything are already set within that contract. If you don't have that contract, you call them up and say, please come and help us, then you might not get reimbursed by FEMA. And so we started that process to try to line contractors up. One of the things that we are considering is that, for example, up on the site, one of the cache site to the south, that if there are places that we can help them stage their equipment, then it will be in the city if something were to happen. We'll be very careful. We're not going to have them store it in the middle of Hemlock or something like that, but there are advantages to having their equipment close by. And so that was part of the discussion.
Okay.
And I think the primary benefit would be the people we get contracts with, but the secondary benefit is if anything happens, the equipment's in the city.
So do we put those contracts out for bid?
We have to go through a process and we don't select one, for example. If we can get 10 infrastructure folks, we're happy. So what it is more like, you go through the process to be able to, you go through all the hoops, and now these folks are approved.
Oh, okay.
It's not really competitive because we don't have a project yet. And we will do whatever it takes to go ahead and get things restored. So multiple contractors is good. We also, I think, it's been a while since I dealt with this, but I think we also, if, say, Tillamook County has somebody that they have a contract with, we can sometimes just piggyback on that contract that they'll come in here. But we want to make sure we will pay those contractors to get the work done. We just might not get any money back that we would be entitled to if we'd done the process correctly.
I believe another component of this is you contract with several companies, because you never know which one's going to be in the area at the time.
Sure.
So staging doesn't mean that they're there permanently. It just means that they're there when they're here.
By doing this, you've already qualified them
Mhm.
Exactly.
to do the work.
It's good. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Status report?
Bruce, could you just give us, if you know any information about whether they've found any unwelcome surprises as they've started work on the grade school?
Yes. I think they had thought on the south side where the joists come out, they figured they would have to cut back, at least 2 feet. And so that was what was in the bid. And it looks like the rot is such that it's going to be at least 8 feet. And so they'll have to rebuild coming out, but they won't do as much as what is there now. It'll be that minus like 2 feet. So it'll be a little bit of a different look, but there's just more rot.
Okay.
Bruce sent out a recent email about the dispatch. I had a chance, Henry Ballensiefer is very involved in this, the mayor of Warrenton. He called me just to give me an update at almost the same time I read your email, which was interesting. Sounds like Astoria will be going with Seaside for a temporary system of the dispatch.
Up to a year or 18 months.
Yeah, so it's not a permanent type fixture, but it will help define us, I hope, for long term. Once we get everybody back into straight, so maybe we'll get a nice countywide system out of it eventually. That's my hope.
Yeah.
And Henry's. It was interesting.
And Mr. Mayor, one of the things, you have two systems that is, I wish I understood this better. They really don't talk to each other very well. And now they're all going to be operating out of one location. And so one of the things that Jason and I have talked about is staying on top of the situation so that they don't do any workarounds or something that could potentially hurt Cannon Beach's communications. So if they go ahead and they move a repeater or something a particular way, so it helps Astoria and Seaside, it may not help us. And so we're trying to get our foot in the door to be part of any kind of decision-making that might impact our services.
Okay, just an FYI. Anything for good of the order? I have two, unless anybody else has something.
I have something.
Go ahead.
First off, I want to respond to Jan's comments and a little bit of Robin's about the tree protections that I think we're seeing a lot of folks concerned by this. My thinking, we have a tree heritage program in the works. I don't know where we're at on that. And I know Jeff has been pretty busy.
It's actually with the Parks Committee.
In the parks. I guess one of the things I was thinking that might, and I just wanted to ask the council if they thought this was a good idea or not, is if we put a moratorium on any tree cutting until the heritage program is in place. And we have definition of what gets cut and what doesn't. And that would only be on public property. Obviously, we can't control yet. And that comes through the code system about what happens on private property. But at least on the public. We had some sort of motion towards protection.
I would welcome that.
Can I just kind of talk about what the process is now? First of all, about 16% of the trees that get cut are in the right of ways. And for that to occur, there has to be some, for example, there's one just a little bit north or south of here that is, we in the past built a road on private property to miss a tree, but now somebody's building there, so they want their property back. And as a result, there's a couple of trees that may be coming out in that location. So those are the ones that are on the private side. If there's something that we're looking at that is a problem tree, be it condition, anything else, we bring in our arborist, and then they take a look at what the condition is. And we'll say that, well, you can save it by doing this, or you really can't save this one. Then I've got this written down because I plan on putting out a report on this. But then there is an appeal period. And then when somebody, individually can appeal that particular action that was recommended by the arborist. And then there's a time frame in which, folks have to respond. The city has to respond. But anyway, there's an appeal. The reports of any tree that's going to be touched in a right of way, copies go to you, it goes to the Parks Committee. There are several entities that, that hear about that. So there is a process. It involves the arborist and allows for appeals. But the majority of those are trees that have some sort of a concern as far as, public safety.
I know that there was a situation where the 6th Street was going to be extended.
Mhm.
And there was a phone call into Jeff Adams for over a month and he did not call that in. So your process may have certain timelines, but if you don't get a call back when you have some questions about that timeline, I think that's very frustrating.
And I'm not aware of that occurring, but if it did, I understand where it'd be frustrating. But we do go through the process.
Well, it meant a tree or two.
On the notice, it actually tells you who to contact. And it is Kelsey for Public Works when it's a public tree.
So it's not Jeff.
There were 3 different groups over there. There was Public Works, there was Jeff, and some other city people. So I would think any of them could have been contacted to get to the right person.
But the form that goes out, we notify people within 100 feet of the tree.
I forgot about
It's at the
that.
Post office. And it says, if you have questions about this, to call this person, and it also gives you an email address. That way it gets the quickest response, because Jeff handles private trees. I mean, he handles all trees, but the public trees start with Public Works and they go through that process. And Jeff does ultimately sign off on it, but he hasn't signed off on them at the time that we're posting it.
I have a question on the appeal.
Mhm.
What happened? So say I have a problem with one of these and am I appealing the notice that it's scheduled to be cut down, or at that point, is it already approved that it's going to be cut down? I'm trying to figure out
Yes.
where does the
Decision,
appeal-
the arborist is reviewed, and I believe that the decision has been made, and that is the decision that is appealed. But I'm working on a report that addresses a number of these things, both the public trees and the trees on the private property. And that's why I had that statistic about the increase in the number of permits coinciding with everybody's interest in saying, wow, we're seeing a lot more trees come down. So I can get that out by Thursday. And but I can get you the information, but it'll be more.
I'd be curious to know how much of I mean, you can appeal it, but you have to know about it first before you appeal it. So how do people get notified? It doesn't sound like putting it up at the post office is, the great, I mean, I don't know how many people look at notices in the post office. I don't necessarily, and I'm on the council.
So that it's put up in the post office, both post office locations, the website, and people within 100 feet radius are given a written letter. So, and that's per our code. Oh, and it's on the website, which I already mentioned that.
Let me get that to you so you've got the best information.
But I like Sam's suggestion. And I think it might be nice to put it in a spot like that until we can get some more decisive information.
I understand that. The only thing that I would ask is that if there's a tree that's determined to be a hazard, that we have the ability to take it down if we think it's an imminent hazard, rather than wait for whatever time it takes to go through whatever word we use.
Seems to me if we have a good way of going to the current policy and people being made aware of that policy, we don't need a moratorium because we have a way to review each one of those. I think the problem is people find out about it after the fact or after the appeal period. I think it's a matter of getting the information beyond 100 feet from the subject tree. And, we get a notice, but not everybody does. And I'm not sure everybody should. But there's a procedure, and just to say, a moratorium. We have. The moratorium, basically, we're going to use a procedure that's already in place to address each of these. If you just say you can't move any trees, and I'll take one that was on the street in front of me. It had choked down the sewer lines and they were backing up. You have a moratorium on that. And George can't flush his toilets. On mine, in the same area, there was a sewer and the water line, and it had broken the water line so that it was leaking. It was on the city side of the meter, so what do I care? But when you find that out, I just think you can't say, well, there's a moratorium when there is a procedure to address it. So I think, from my view, the issue is how do we get the procedure activated rather than just say we're not going to allow anything. And maybe
I think that just the only thing I was suggesting is to kind of push the heritage tree program ahead and use the heritage tree program to help clarify the process.
I can send it, it is a process laden process that we have to go through now. And so let me get that to you. I can get it to you, like I said, by Thursday. And let me suggest that we put an item on the workshop for the 14th to discuss trees. And you will have this in the next couple of days, what the whole process is and what some more history is. And then maybe we can talk about it then. And I apologize, I don't have all my facts in my head.
No, I pulled this out cold, so I don't expect anybody to make a total decision on anything tonight. I just pulled up the application per permit form. So an appeal goes directly to the planning commission for adjudication, I guess. But it is also a $50 fee for the application. So just.
Is that on the private side, Sam?
No, this is for,
I think it's for private property trees.
this is City of Cannon Beach tree removal. Oh, that's the application. I thought it said appeal. Hang on. Removal.
If you'd like, I can go get my laptop and read you the process.
We'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
And I want this to be more simplified, I guess, for both sides. For people who are concerned and also for staff, because it is an onerous process. So that's all I'm trying to get towards. The other topic thing that I wanted to mention, and it's just more of a question, I guess, for the council is anyone else as shocked as I was about the fact that we lost 14% of our population?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up too.
That just jaw dropped me. I was
theories on it.
I do too. I think some people didn't register.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was just a poor census, but the rest of the county
It all grew.
grew dramatically. So that's too much to think of as just poor counting. And I think it's something that we should really be aware of in our future conversations about all the stuff that we do, because it's the residents, and if we're losing residents because things are off, what are we doing wrong? Housing topics, when we come to the short-term rental topic, I think this has got to be a new factor. Just all the stuff. that we talk about. So,
I think it's interesting, though, that the statistics that you're giving, that there were 300 applications for buildings or housing. And yet if we're losing 14%, so I'm, okay, so what's this housing?
Guess what that means?
Yeah,
Well,
It's second home people.
second homes and short-term rentals.
Mhm,
Exactly what's happening.
mhm.
and that comes back around to our code discussions that we're going to, not just the urgent stuff that we're talking about tomorrow night, but down the road. Yes.
Great hell.
Anybody else have a good of the order?
I have one, I have been noticing that on the discussion regarding the election, people have mentioned that they are confused or not really sure what the city wants to do about City Hall. And that might prompt them to vote against the proposal. And I'm thinking that maybe we should have a discussion and a little more discussion about what we want to do about City Hall. Find a location and talk about the size of it and so forth. But I'd like to do that fairly soon.
Yeah, we kind of got, I guess, we pushed it aside with COVID. That's a year and a half ago. We were getting down to, the council was going to narrow down, select a site. And we talked about, at least I talked about coming up on my favorite, if we could get agreement. And then we never had any follow-up meetings after that because of many, many reasons. So I concur with Nancy. I'd like to see this addressed very prominently, and the next work session would be a good time to do it, because I personally don't see that you need to know exactly where you're going to build your house before you build it. What you really need to know is that, have I got the financial ability to build the house? That's what we're trying to address. And so we really kind of put off that decision, say, well, let's, if we even get funding, I know we got to come back. We never reached agreement on where it ought to be. I think the size will, we all taken a look at the program, and I know we were asked to go through and see where you might cut back on the amount of space. I've done that. I don't know if everybody else has. There wasn't much room to cut back, frankly, in my view. But I think we've got to quit bouncing this thing all over and reach an agreement and pick the best compromise that we can come up with. Rather than, well, nothing's perfect. We can kind of meet 3 out of the 4 basic requirements on most of them. But the requirements that they don't meet have kept us from coming to an agreement. So if we could get this as a key element in the planning session next week, I think it'd behoove all of us, and would certainly address a real concern of the public. They have a concern that I personally don't have, because I think we'll take care of that if the ballot passes. If it doesn't, we're wasting our time. But I'm confident it will pass. Therefore, let's move ahead like under the assumption that it will. And I think if we can come to an agreement on a location, then we almost have assured, or at least removed the doubt from some people's minds that now they come and see where it is. Anyway, I agree with Nancy, put it on the works.
I think, let me just, it is a topic that we need to talk about no matter which way the future goes. Because it's still a topic that is important to what we do. So regardless of the ballot, this is still something that we need to hammer out. And I agree. I am curious if the work session is getting a little too filled up. I'd rather do a special night just for this. Personally, we got an empty 2 weeks after at the end of this month. So have time. I would rather do it that way.
And do you have the work session? I don't think we had that much on it.
So we have a wrap up of the season with lifeguard and bike aids. Jeff will give a brief TSP update and an annexation discussion. We have the advertisement for the judge, the Twin Beach Elementary CMGC discussion about the resolution and how that moves forward, and a tree removal discussion.
I'd sure like to see us have a discussion before the ballots go out. And the ballots go out October 13th, I think.
I believe we added it, abbreviated version of it next week for the planning meeting, work session. At that session, formalize meetings the following weeks as to what our intended objective, what our goals are, how we're going to address it. So I'd rather get something started next Tuesday than to find an excuse to put it off another week.
I agree.
Could we do it Wednesday? So we could take it for
15th.
a unique meeting time? Yeah. I agree totally because I read the paper tonight where they have taken the Gearhart Fire Department or firehouse off of the ballot because they've been, a group has sued the city for not having specific enough description of what they're voting for. And it's going to hold it up from having it be a vote. So it's not just our community that's concerned about not knowing what they're voting for.
We have a tremendous amount of information, so you'll be able to get your answers. The other thing, I've been involved where a referral was put out for something that was going to be good for everybody, but not specific. It failed. And then the same terms, everything else, except specifics were provided in the past. There was a lack of specifics, killed it.
I have no problem.
That puts the burden on the council to get specific.
Yeah, I have no problem with either Tuesday or Wednesday or later in the month. Tuesday, it's just going to be a more abbreviated discussion. The concern I'm running into, and I need to ask Ashley, this would be a public meeting, staff is involved. How do we have to work around the discussion of promoting an aspect of the ballot while we're talking about something that we would normally talk about?
So are you asking about what level staff can participate in that discussion?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, elected officials, you can engage in campaign discussions. You can support a ballot measure. You can have any of those sort of discussions. What you need to be careful not to do is, use city resources and time to, in terms of them providing anything that's not factual information. So you can't, ask Jen to, put together, I'm trying to think of something that you would ask her that would be inappropriate, but so generally speaking, that is a perfectly fine meeting, and staff can be there to ask and deliver factual information. They just cannot participate in promotion of the ballot measure or, not promoting the ballot measure.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think the nature of the discussion, I agree with Councilor Risley that a dedicated discussion probably would be better because there's so much information that's available. It'll probably take a little bit of time to kind of narrow down what you want.
I wouldn't mind Wednesday, next Wednesday.
I'm fine with Wednesday.
That's a good idea.
We're gonna do it, huh? Sorry.
6 o'clock, Wednesday,
Mhm.
15, yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.